Welcome to the lecture on We Don't Need More Content. Essentially, we're going to be talking about how the world really doesn't need more content. It has plenty. What it needs is more insight, more wisdom, and more people who actually tell the truth clearly enough for people to actually act on it. So when we're talking about content, it's not a new concept, but the way that we consume it definitely is, to the point where it kind of infiltrates our life in everything. So people are consuming more advice. They got different posts on different social media platforms, video, whether it's long form, short form, all over the place, podcasts, and opinions. Everyone has an opinion now. And that creates a problem because some of it's just not true. Some of it's not true. Some of it's emotional based. You don't know what to believe in and what to follow. That's why people today feel so confused. They're overwhelmed by how much information that there is, and they're so confused. And to make things worse, even though there is so much information, they still can't improve. Their lives still aren't getting better. They're not getting better. They're not improving. So kind of like, what's the point of it if you get all this information, but you can't actually do anything with it that has a positive impact on your life? So way too much information, way too much content, and way too much entertainment. There needs to be a balance in life. Not everything is going to be entertainment, fun. Okay, nice distractions. It's kind of pointless when people lack insight, they lack judgment, and they lack real world wisdom. Previously, wisdom was held with high esteem, right? It was something that people aspired to. It was something that they respected. It was something that they valued, and they protected it as well. That made people's lives better. It was tangible. It was something that actually produced an outcome or a result. Content that is just for entertainment or getting, rage engagement, reactions, that's not going to improve your life. But honestly, a lot of people don't care because they're in so much pain and struggling so much that they just want a distraction. They want to distract themselves from the pains or the struggles of life. And that I understand, but it's not going to make your life any better. Sometimes you have to face the reality, accept the situation, and be willing to do things that are difficult or hard so that you can improve and your life can improve. So more content is just not the answer. It doesn't matter if it leads to where people can't think clearly, they can't diagnose or figure out their own problems, they can't make better decisions, and they can't apply it in real life. So let's break down some of the patterns that'll happen with this. So constant consumption or viewing or whatever of content, it usually keeps it to where the person's not actually implementing it, right? So they're constantly chasing more information instead of solving an actual problem. If you just stick with the theory and the information, but you don't apply it, you don't get a result. So that's an issue I see a lot today, and you probably see it in your day-to-day as well. When you go to the store or someplace and you're expecting some kind of somewhat decent level of service, but the person can't actually do their job. They can't do the basics, right? They can do the research ahead of time for their resume and for their interview to know exactly what they should be saying and what they're supposed to do, but they can't actually do it. It does not matter if you have information, knowledge, or content if you cannot apply it. It has to be applied to get a result. This is reality. I'm big on focusing on reality and realigning yourself to reality, because in the short term you can kind of skirt around it, you can avoid it, but long term you're gonna have to face it at some point. So another pattern, people are confusing entertainment and motivation with progress. right? They think that because, oh, I'm pumped up, or this is fun. Okay, I'm feeling good. There's progress being made. It's a good thing, right? Well, it depends. What was the outcome in reality? Did you get a result? Did you change something in a positive way in reality other than your emotions? So people are confusing feeling good for actual progress. Progress may not always feel good, but it's still necessary. Something I always talk about, needs versus wants. People want to feel good, but they need to get a result in reality. And they need to stop avoiding like hard thinking and trying to default to easy consumption as a distraction. Sometimes you have to think things through and it's going to be difficult. Sometimes it may stress you out, feel exhausted. You're like, oh, I just can't think about this right now. But sometimes you need to, and you still need to go in and get it done. Going and trying to avoid that by consuming content is not going to make your situation better. It's just avoidance. It's just distracting you from the situation. And it's actually holding back your progress, right? So another pattern that I noticed is there's a lot of just like generic advice that everyone says is recycled, it's repeated. Everybody says the same thing. That's my issue personally with insights today. I don't really see them as insights. A lot of it is just kind of sayings or like a quick little sentence, but people don't understand what they're actually posting or can't apply it. They can't use it. Insights are essentially wisdom, and wisdom needs to be applied. Wisdom is knowledge that's applied. So if it can't be applied by the person, it's not that great of an insight. It's information, but it's not necessarily an insight that they can use. So a lot of generic advice without any actual depth or real world application. You got people posting more content instead of improving their thinking or their strategy. Having worked in branding and marketing and in strategy, that's a big one. A lot of people, I said before, confuse that progress with results or outcomes. They need to be able to develop a strategy that will actually give them some type of results, allow them to execute successfully, and hopefully systemize that so that then you don't have to do so much work later. At some point, I'll make a lecture on that, in which case we go over, hey, cool, you got the strategy, but you need to systemize it so you can actually execute it. I think that's where a lot of people fall off today, and also where strategy may get a bad rep in a lot of ways is because it can't be applied. That's not a good strategy. It's not even a strategy. It's just, hey, this is what we think might work. So patterns of that, generic advice. Yeah, there's thought leaders everywhere. Like, okay, they said something that you emotionally agree with, you engage, whatever, whatnot. But did it make your life better? I think that really needs to be like the metric. Does this insight make your life better? If it does not, it's essentially just information you can't use to get an outcome. If it does, that's an insight. That's wisdom. In business, that's the point of insights. They don't just start, hey, this is what we think it is. No, this is the situation. This is an insight that will make you more money and build up your business and build up your brand so that you can be successful and provide for your employees and all of your customers and have an actual impact in real life. That's a real insight, right? So one of the things that we're going to touch on in terms of some of the consequences of way too much content. We mentioned some of these, like people, they're fairly informed now because, you got the internet, you can search in Google, you got AI. It's going to give you the information. That's super, super easy. And you have to remember that that wasn't always the case. I still remember like, oh, got to do a book report. Guess I got to go to the library. People today were like, why don't you just look it up? No, actually had to walk down the street or, across town to a building, have an actual library card in which I signed up for, then go and search. That's another thing people forget. You had to search for the dang book. It wasn't just like whoop, it didn't just pop up. You had to search. It took a while to find the book. Then you got the book. You had to find a place to sit down because it might have been crowded. And then you had to actually go and find it in the book and read the thing, and you had to write it down. In order to gain that information, it took effort. And people appreciated it more, and they remembered it a lot more because it was a lot more involved. But today, people are so informed, but they're highly ineffective at producing actual results. Partially because of what it took to get that information back then. It took some work, took some effort. And from that, they became stronger in things. That's essentially, you got more information and like more content and you can't really produce results. But really that comes down to they don't have the fortitude to be able to push forward and produce those results. And that's understandable considering if they're consuming content or entertainment or videos all day. They're not working on themselves and that strength to be able to execute. So another consequence, poor judgment and weak decision making. Yeah. So I think that's extremely apparent today. We've seen a lot of bad decisions, right? Things, whether it's our leaders, whether it's politicians, whether it's businesses, and you see them do something and you're like, why did you do that? Like, you knew that was going to have this outcome, or it was really obvious. Why would you do that to yourself? Well, that's poor judgment. That's terrible decision making. People don't realize that it's not a good idea because they're not used to thinking, because they're outsourcing their thinking to something else, right? It's something that I end up touching on, but critical thinking. Did you do second order thinking to the point where you thought beyond just the first action? Well, okay, we think we should do this. Okay, cool. What's going to happen if you do that? What are the possibilities of those things? What can prevent the potential problems of that? Thinking forward. And a lot of this has to do as well with anti-intellectualism, where we've kind of kicked a lot of, some of the smarter people to the curb, to the point where people don't have something to lean on. These people had a role. That role within the community was to provide that wisdom or those insights so that people can make their lives better and prevent problems. So now they're trying to do it themselves by outsourcing to technology or AI. Again, it gives you information, not necessarily the wisdom of knowing what you should, or, this is the big one, should not do. That's what it means when it comes in terms of judgment and weak decision making. Also, an inability to understand complex problems. That goes back to the critical thinking. I find that when a complex issue comes up today, people, they kind of freeze, like, especially younger people, but like they'll freeze a bit and they won't know what to do. Usually they'll shut down or they'll just kind of disregard it. They have no experience in actually pushing through that, dealing with that high pressure and pushing through the pressure or the anxiety. So you need to be able to actually solve some type of complex problems, because the world is complex and it's full of problems. So that's going to come up, right? If you can't do that, you don't have good judgment and decision making, you're probably going to have like poor execution. It's going to be inconsistent, and you may even know what to do. Like, this is what I need to do, but you can't do it. If you spent all day scrolling on your feed or looking at some little videos, you might not have the capability or ability or the fortitude to actually do what you need to do, or do what you know you need to do. There's a difference between knowing something and being able to do it. And I think with the internet and technology, it's kind of like changed that perception. Previously, people had a lot better understanding of that. Now, because technology can do so much, people don't realize, like, hey, I may know this, but I don't actually have the ability to do this. How would they know that? If they had a consequence in the past from it. They tried to do something and they failed. That's a consequence. And then they realize, oh, I don't know how to do that. So struggle isn't always bad, because it allows you to grow. It allows you to recalibrate your perception to reality. This is not possible in reality for me at this current point in time. I'm not able to do this. Now, the trick is don't stop there and then quit. It would then be, okay, I need to work harder at this practice so that I can be able to do it. Right? It's so much time wasted on consuming content instead of building actual capability and competence so that you can do things again that make your life better. Right? So another consequence, and this one's for brands. Oh, they all sound the same. They all sound the same. They're all doing the same things. People, this would be like one of my bigger tips that I'll give for people who have a brand, they have business, they have personal brand, they're creator, whatever. Supply and demand. It's a real situation, right? If everyone is doing the same thing, you all sound the same, and therefore you all get less attention. So do something different. Because right now everyone's doing the same thing. They all sound the same, and they're getting ignored. They're like, why isn't this working? This worked before. People aren't paying attention. We're not getting people to come to our website to get our apps or whatever, buy our product. Well, are you any different than the thousands or millions of others out there doing the same thing? If not, people are not going to pay attention to you. There's no actual authority or reason to follow you. You don't have any differentiation, so people can't tell the difference. They don't trust you. You're just like everybody else, right? So the old rules that used to work within brands do not work today, partially because you flooded everyone with content. All the same content. The thing that would make you different and allow people to recognize you. Oh, you know what? You're valuable. You're important. Or, you know, we should respect you, or we'll follow you, or we'll buy your product. No, you did exactly what everyone else did, and now you're getting exactly the same result as everyone else, which ain't that great. I am big on supply and demand, and I am big on not doing what everyone else is doing. You need to follow your own path. All right. It's my own. I will say that this is my own perspective on this specific thing. If you're not able to forge your own path and all you can do is follow everyone else, I don't think you should be leading. Whether that's a business, whether that's other people, or whatever it is, you need to be able to have the confidence to forge that path that's different than everyone else. If you can't do that, you can't handle the pressure of leading. All right, so that's a little my side quest in terms of a personal thing. But the last part that I'll talk about is more content is really just creating more confusion. It's too much stuff. It's way too much. People don't know who to believe. They don't know who to believe. Is this true? Is this not true? Is it real? Is this AI? Is it not AI? Supply and demand. Too much. Too much. Way too much supply. Demand has gone down. So we broke down some of the patterns, some of the consequences, but I also want to, of course, touch on the solution, right? You know me, we diagnosed it. We figured out the situation, but how do we solve that? Well, this one's going to be something a little different. I like going to the source issue. It's not, you could say just don't watch the content or just have less content, but that's not going to solve the source issue that caused it in the first place. It's how we value things, the things that we give our attention to, that we like, that we repost, that whatever we buy. That's what dictates what is put out by businesses and other creators and such. So I'd say stop measuring like what's valuable or what has value based on how many views that it has, how many likes, how many followers. That's a big one. It's a psychological trigger. People see, a lot of followers. Okay, this person must be really important. I get it. But like, that's not going to add anything in real life. The amount of followers you have has no bearing on my life whatsoever, or your life or anyone else's life. So it's probably not really a valuable thing. So you need to recalibrate in terms of what actually is valuable in reality. Measure them by their ability to be useful in the real world. I think that goes for people I think that goes for brands, personal brands, creators. Can you produce results in the real world? If you can, you're valuable. If you only create the perception that you can, not quite as valuable. You're valuable in marketing or even branding, but not necessarily to producing results that would improve people's lives. So recalibrate based on what we find valuable, right? Put more value on wisdom. Also, replace the constant consumption with some actual application. Like, just don't consume all day. Like, maybe cut down on some of your consumption and instead focus on your life and doing things within your life. That's a given. That I'm sure that everyone kind of agrees with that one. That's a given, but it's really hard to do. So work on that one in tidbits and little bits here and there and try to improve it, because for a lot of people, content and entertainment is an addiction. So they won't be able to just quit instantly. They'll try it and they're like, oh my gosh, I was trying not to scroll on social media more, and then an hour later I was scrolling on social media. Yeah, it's an addiction. It's kind of how it works. So start in small little bits so you don't shock your system, right? And I already said, prioritize wisdom over information. Wisdom is the application of knowledge, your ability to apply knowledge. The knowledge itself shouldn't just be praised. It should be praised if it can be used and produce a result. And the last one, in terms of a solution, little, parts here to do. Bring back critical thinking. Like it allowed you to develop real judgment, and it allowed you to prevent a lot of problems. I think everyone kind of knows this at some point. Like, critical thinking used to be taught within the U.S. Education system. It used to be a big push. When I was growing up, it was critical thinking all over the place, right? The process of going through and learning something and assessing and analyzing the outcomes or the ramifications. So that was something that was focused on and taught. I didn't realize how much of a focus it was until one of my friends that's from another country mentioned that they never were taught that. I was like, oh, I thought that was just part of school. Like I thought that was the point of school. So apparently it wasn't widely taught, and it's not taught as much, or if at all, these days. So people don't have those skills. And like I said, they never develop that real judgment. Instead, what they rely on, collecting more tips and hacks. What's another tip to do this? What's another hack to get around this? These are shortcuts. What's the shortcut so I don't have to learn it? What's the shortcut so I don't have to practice it? Like that leads to a lack of capability. So don't be surprised when there's an outcome to where you can't do the things that you want to do because you relied on external factors or external things to do these things for you. Instead, I'm talking about critical thinking. Do some real world testing. Try things out. Test something. Watch and observe the results, right? Okay, I did this action. That's not the end of it. What was the result? What happened after you did the thing? Okay, you watched that. What did you learn? That did not work. Okay, why? Because this. Oh, okay. Well, what do you do then? Then you go back and you optimize. You adjust based on reality. And you don't just base it on some temporary ideology or opinions. This goes for people as well as businesses. I worked with a lot of businesses, and they very rarely will really actually assess what they did and why it went wrong, right? And then go back and fix it and make it better. They instead just blame it on, oh, this thing doesn't work today. Oh, these people, blah, blah, blah. Well, it takes a little accountability to say, hey, it was probably me. I'm probably the problem. So, all right, what can I do to improve this? And like I said, adjust based on the results in reality and not just perception or what everyone thinks it should be. It's crucial. So, with saying all that, we don't need any more content. We need more insight, more wisdom, better judgment, and actual insight that changes how people think, how they make decisions, and how they act, the results they get, right? The people who consume the least are often the ones with the most understanding and can apply these things for a better life. We're talking about development as a human and as an adult, doing these hard things, right? Not consuming content, working on your life, actually applying some of these things, seeing your failure, then adjusting, having the accountability to do so. Adult stuff. So being able to actually do that, to have a better life, those people who can do that for the future, I'm giving you heads up, they will be the ones leading and dictating how things are. Everyone else will be stuck consuming content, not doing anything. Everything's getting worse. They'll be online complaining about it, venting, looking at you, Reddit, whining, right? Don't make it to where you're dependent on everyone else. Take some control over your life. I think that's a big thing. And the future, it really belongs to people and brands that they produce more than just content. Like they actually deliver some real insights, deep insights, and some actual real world value. That is critical for especially brands. You need to deliver some type of value. If you can't do that, what are you there for? All right, so this is GI here for the Advisor Insight lectures. This one was on We Don't Need More Content. If you guys want more of these lectures, feel free to go over to my Advisor Insight page, gigriffin.com/insights, and you can check those out as well as other things like the show, the books, the frameworks, etc. GI here.